Great to be here. My name's Ed Catto. We're at Finger Lakes Comic-Con. I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing legendary writer Don McGregor. Don, good to see you.
Legendary.
Yeah. Capital L.
Don't they say
legendary.
that about people that are dead?
No. We say that about those we care about.
I used to say a legend looking for a gig, but I'm not really looking for a gig.
No,
I don't care now.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
You're past that? Oh, boy. Well,
Actually, about the same. I only want to do what I want to do.
yes. Isn't that the way you've always run your career?
More or less, yes,
Don?
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes at great cost.
Yeah. Well, we're so excited to have you here. We're going to go as this special Word Balloon podcast, and would love to talk to you about some of the things in your career and some of your thoughts about currently what you're seeing going on in fandom, and especially your reaction to some of the pop culture things that you had such a inspirational and creative start for.
Hold on, I'm going to get serious here.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in my serious mode.
Yes.
Give me a moment. I'm working on that. I'm totally focused now. I'm really serious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
What's your question?
Yeah. No.
Come on, don't keep me waiting here. Dan, these people out here, they're bored. People are bored.
Yeah.
That little girl over there, she said to me, sit down. If you don't get to say cooking, I'm leaving.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Yeah, right there. See you hear it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Insurrection in the audience.
Yes. Well,
And I love you. I love you, Ed. I love you.
Don, we're 90 seconds in, and I've totally lost control of the interview. I'm not surprised.
You weren't going to have control.
I'm not going to have
Who
control.
said?
Oh my goodness.
My God.
Don, well, we're glad to have you here. Of course, first thing that we wanted to speak to you about is you've been in this business for quite a while. Recently, you've seen a big movie based on a lot of the thoughts, creations, and ideas that you started, the Black Panther movie. And I'd love to have an open-ended question to ask you a little bit about what you think about that and what your experience has been like.
Well, what my experience has been like with the movie?
With the Black Panther movie.
I think they did a really great job with it.
Yeah.
I've seen earlier versions they were going to do the Black Panther in the 1980s and 1990s when there were proposals for people who wanted to make a Black Panther movie. And all of you out there, if you like the movie that's out there now, be glad they waited.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not making this up. The plot proposal for one of the movies, I think Dwayne Turner showed it to me back in the time that we were doing Panther's Prey.
Yeah.
And this is what Hollywood would buy for a black character in the 1990s or late 80s. The Black Panther was a street sweeper in Harlem. What? And he has amnesia. He doesn't know that he's a king. Oh. And but he has the abilities of a cat. But he's like a cat. Supposedly, according to this proposal, cats don't like to bathe, so he never washes. He doesn't bathe because he dislikes water.
Yeah.
And this was going to be the Black Panther movie. That's the Black Panther movie they thought they could sell.
Oh my
I like her. See, she's a good audience. The rest of the show is for you. You're prettier than all the rest of them, so that's the other thing.
Yes.
I know you are. And I'm sorry. I love you dearly, but really, you're not her.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, Don has quite the reputation of a charmer. Some folks call him the most romantic guy in comics. This is Don.
No.
Yes.
Curse in my life, I've been shy around women all my life.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just wish I would get over it. And I'm going to try that soon.
Yeah, I haven't seen evidence of that, but yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You've seen me beauty. Oh, man.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So that 1990s Panther treatment never happened.
No, thank God. But A&M Records also wanted to do a Panther movie.
Oh, really?
And whenever you're dealing with Hollywood, you have to understand what it is they really want.
Yes.
In the beginning, they don't. Well, no, but you have to understand what it is they want you to give them, because what they're telling you is not what they really want. For instance, I'm going to A&M Records. Terry Carpenter was the editor for Panther's Prey. And so we're getting contacted by A&M Records. I was interested in doing a Panther movie.
Yeah.
So I go over. I had 2 or 3 meetings with the woman who wanted to do this, and we really want to do the Black Panther, and you're the guy that's writing it right now, and we want you to help us put it together, and And so we had like 2 or 3 meetings.
Yeah.
And she was really pushing to have this done. And about that time, John Singleton ended up on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah.
Wearing a Black Panther hat with Dwayne Turner artwork from our book
Oh, yeah.
on it. Now, on those talk shows, nothing like that happens by accident.
Right.
And that's because John really wanted to do a Black Panther movie.
Yeah. Wow.
So he had a separate one going on.
Yeah.
And there were different people. But what did A&M Records, why did they really want to do, they basically do records, why did they really want to do a Black Panther movie? It finally came out, Janet Jackson sings for A&M Records. They were looking for a film property for Janet Jackson. Monica Lynn is a black singer. So really, the thrust that they really wanted was a vehicle for Janet Jackson.
Wow.
Now, you don't learn that until you're like 5 meetings down, in 2 or 3 months of meetings.
Yeah.
Somebody, oh, wait a minute. I see what this what
yeah.
this is really all about.
Oh,
so that's what I
wow.
mean, where you don't, you're trying to piece together what is it that these people really want and what do they really want you to do.
Yeah. Right.
And they will continually change their mind with the weather, whatever they think is popular at the moment.
Yeah.
I do a character called Saber.
Yes.
And there's been interest in doing Saber as a movie upon occasion. Part of the problem with doing Saber as a movie is that at its core is a love story and it's highly sexual between a black man and a white woman.
Yes.
And it was controversial in 1976, and it's still, while it's not as dicey as it was, it being what Saber is, because it's got gay characters, it's got transsexuals.
Right.
Like time is caught up with it's like perfect for this.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about film, I think HBO or Showtime
Yeah.
or somebody could probably handle a lot better. But I think at that time, well, there were real problems getting Saber put through. But there was an agent that was interested in doing Saber. And Mike Grella told me, oh, this guy, he gets it down. He works at film, and he understands comics. So I'm meeting with the agent, and the agent says to me, well, Don, I want to do your young Saber. I want to, and do this franchise.
The adventures before Saber
Right.
in the comics.
Because in the comics, he's already pretty much established. He's like in his early 20s, early to mid 20s. So he's already, pretty much an established character. But there's a lot of background that I had not yet. Sometimes I would go and do flashbacks in the books, and I intended over time to keep going back, and we would find out why does Midnight Storm why is she so angry with Saber?
Right.
Why does she hate him?
Right.
Or how did Melissa and Saber first meet?
Yeah.
And all these different characters. And so I intended to handle this. I said, well, I could do Young Saber, would just take all those origin stories, put them in one book, and the audience will be able to see it. And it'll be like how all these characters got together and set up stuff for one of the books. It wasn't going to violate anything that was in the series, and we'd have a new series to do. And I could read it easily. So I started working on Young Saber.
Yeah. Now, what year would this have been done? This is 80s, 90s, something?
No, this is later. This is later. I don't know, in the 2000s.
Oh, 2000s, yeah.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. This is exactly what goes on with Bo Smith's Winona Earp property, right? So it has a property, and the filmed version is the earlier version.
So anyway, I'm working on Young Saber, and then I don't know. Apparently, Sam Jackson was looking for a franchise.
Oh.
And everybody wants to be in a superhero franchise. So the agent called me and said, "Hey, Sam Jackson's interested in doing a franchise. Let's do this for Sam Jackson."
Yeah.
I said, "Sam Jackson can't play Young Saber. He can play Old Saber.
Right.
You want to do but that's not the same. He's not the same person. When he's in his teens, when he's on flying skateboards, mooning the politicians because he thinks they can take a joke.
Oh, yeah.
And that really, he's just a young guy, yanking the strings of the politicians, not realizing they're going to take it really serious. And the more publicity that he gets, the more he becomes known, the more they want him out of the way, because he's a rebel. He doesn't fit in with it, and he's making fun of their institutions.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more the government is becoming more and more severe in controlling the public.
Yeah.
And when we finally do the second storyline with Joyful Slaughter,
Right.
who, by the way, is my favorite villain that I've ever created.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because Joyful's running on the strict death penalty platform for president.
Yeah.
And he's going to execute Saber over Old Faithful and spread it and show it all over the country, all over the world. And like, look, I'm executing people over Old Faithful. Every hour we will put another body on top of Old Faithful, and it'll draw the tourists in as well. And I'm thinking I'm being outrageous, and I swear to God, the fucking world is catching up with me. Please.
Yeah, right. Saber is.
By the way, did I just curse on it? Because that just
you can curse on this show.
Oh, thank God.
Yes. No, that's fine. Yeah.
You're my permission.
Yeah. So Saber is
Thank
post-apocalyptic.
God the little girls left.
Yes, but you feel almost as it's caught up. The Joyful Slaughter is almost like a current politician in many ways, right?
Obviously, that story would fit in so well right now. And when they actually come in to basically stamp out the voices that are, because Saber's defending this settlement that's been based around Disney World. Disney World is collapsed. And the bad guys have taken it over.
Right.
And so that's their headquarters. Oh, Disney will love me for that.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Saber was an extension from War of the Worlds.
Yes.
But I could take the Martians out, and with Saber, it was like, to me, it was purer because it's just a guy who becomes this target for larger organizations. And really, all he wants to do as he gets older, he wants to be with a woman he loves.
Yes.
He wants to raise a family. He wants to keep his word and his word of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the story is a love story about two people trying to keep that love alive in a world that's gone crazy.
Yeah, sure. I was always impressed how Saber started with very much a romantic story, full of love and passion, and quickly progressed into real world things like being a father and keeping up with everything.
That became a really big problem because in 1976 when I wrote it, and then she print till 78 because the artist held it up for 2 years, and he did not want Melissa pregnant.
Yeah.
And we started to refuse to finish drawing the book. This is like the difference in time periods in pop culture.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to survive economically because I'm now Marvel and I have fought bitterly over the Black Panther.
Yes.
And doing the Ku Klux Klan material, which was my total. The people have said, "Did that hurt your career at Marvel? You mean outside of killing it?"
Yeah. There's always a story floating
Not that
around.
that's the way they would phrase it, but
Yeah. The story always was that they said you need to put more white people into Black Panther, and you said, "Sure, I got a story for you."
no. I literally every issue of Panther's Rage, just about. One of the main things they continually wanted white people, and it was their. I said, "It's your mythology." You said Wakanda is a super secret society. Nobody knows where it is. They can't find it. They've got the technology to keep people out. Now remember, maybe only 6 to 8 stories have been done set in Wakanda at that time frame. And none of it had really gone outside and explored Wakanda. So I literally spent 3 months creating maps for Wakanda and all the different places that they were going to go
Right.
to. I had to have that to do the storyline I wanted to do. I had to know it. You had to create the reality of the place so that when you got there, people would say, "Oh," I think it makes it more real to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it really got to when I was doing conventions like this and meeting people at the, doing shows or with people coming up to the table asking questions, and there were a lot of things to get used to then. It was so popular when people would come up, and I think maybe if writers are often like second-class citizens.
Yeah, how's that?
It's a very art-oriented medium. People tend to talk about the artist, but writers seldom get the same kind of power that the artist has.
Sure.
But at that time, I think both Steve Gerber and I had sort of this Don McGregor books they weren't anybody but Don McGregor books. Just like
No.
a Steve Gerber book wasn't anything but Steve.
Yeah, you had such a unique voice.
People would come up, and they've been following every book you've done for 1-2 years. So you're meeting people who feel they know you intimately. If you're writing personally, and in these books, they feel they know you.
Yes.
I would have people come up and tell me stuff that I probably wouldn't tell you yet.
Yeah, right, right.
Although sometimes I've been on stage and go, "Oh my God, I didn't know I was going to get into this." This story's got no good ending.
Yeah.
So in meeting the people that way, I mean, literally, sometimes they would tell you really private and sometimes really painful stuff.
Yeah.
Because they related so much, but getting used to the fact that you had never met these people before, they're standing on that side of the table, and suddenly they're just pouring their lives out to you.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of your writing was very much full of a lot of passion and personal insights. It wasn't just a good guy hitting a bad guy or going on an adventure.
I would often try to tell the people, don't confuse the writer with the human being. The human being stumbles over his shoelaces.
Yeah.
Can't do hardly anything right. The writer tries to weed all that out. And tries to, get everything as close to what I hoped it could be and envisioned it to be.
Yeah, sure.
It's not like daily life.
Yeah. One time, Nelson DeMille, the fiction writer, was speaking, and he said, someone said, "Boy, I love the way your character has all those quips, like right off the cuff." He's like, "Yeah, it takes me 3 days to write each of those. It's not spontaneous in real life." Yeah. Let me touch on one thing with Saber, Don. You talk about how it was a story of a man and a woman and the things that go on, but that series, which in many ways seems very short by today's standards, was just layered with so many characters. Every character with a clever name and with a rich backstory. Can you speak a little bit to the things you were trying to accomplish and the way you juggle all the different characters and what they mean and what they do?
Okay, let me just start and keep me on track. I may.
That's quite a task.
I know. Yeah. I'll try to get back to it, but because one thing influences another. It isn't just one thing, and that's the reason that got done. When the Black Panther and Kill River were ending, and I was leaving Marvel Comics, and it was a pretty traumatic time in my life. I'd gone through a divorce by the time the books were ending. I was going to child custody courts to make sure I could see my daughter. Money was tight.
Sure.
And it was taking a long time to produce Saber. When I first had the idea of doing, I felt like I was a slow writer, and I really wanted to have complete say over my books, and I wanted to own the characters. I was tired of writing everything where like the first issue of the Black Panther where I created Killmonger, did the Master Wakanda. I got paid $168 for it.
Yeah.
They owned everything. And there were times where my wife and my kids had to do without things because I'm having trouble just getting through that time period.
Sure.
People don't understand the cost that can have on you and the scars and wounds that it can leave on you.
Sure.
So I thought, okay, I want to do my own character, and I come up with Saber, and that's all inspired by an Errol Flynn movie called The Seahawk.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm watching this movie one night, and I said, wait a minute. This should be about a black guy, not a white guy. He's a slave aboard a rowing ship, and then they take him to a plantation, and they're whipping him to get him to do work. Right. Wait a minute. And then he used a rebellion.
Yeah.
I said, this should be, they've never done, a black character that's, this, I can't think of the term.
Yeah, well, he was so charismatic. Errol Flynn's breakout role,
that's
of course.
The kind of thing I wanted to do. That kind of character had never been done before.
Yeah.
Huh?
You sank the Black Rebellion in Puerto Rico or in
No,
Haiti?
I can't think of the term right now. But at any rate, my thought was I want to do that kind of character, and I'd never seen a black character done that way. And I thought Saber could be reflect on all the things about going on in society at the time that I saw, and then project it and put it
Yeah.
ahead.
And at that time, you were in New York.
But I was like, in the beginning, I really wanted to do a series called Ragamuffins about little kids growing up in the 1950s. And I always had that. I had that plan since before I was even working at Marvel Comics, probably before I was working at Warren. I wanted to do that series, but I realized coming off, I couldn't come off the superhero stuff and the science fiction stuff. People already forgot I had done all these horror stories for Warren. They knew me for the science fiction material, and I'm talking about, I think we could do a book for the comic book stores, because nobody had done this before.
Yeah.
People in the industry thought I was crazy. They said, Don, it's such a small percentage of our audience, the comic book stores can't support a book. I thought if you gave them a writer and an artist whose names they knew, and you gave them something they couldn't get anywhere else,
Yes.
that there was an audience there.
Yeah.
Did I know it for sure? No, how could I know it for sure?
Yeah,
And I could be as crazy as they thought I was.
Yes.
On top of that, then people would say, well, Don, who's going to buy a book about a black guy with a lot of guns?
Yeah.
You know, and I hope somebody's out there that's going to buy the book.
Yeah.
And
And
so I said, I can't do Ragamuffins first. They want people, and I wanted to do Detectives Incorporated because I love Private Eyes.
Yeah.
And I had done, my first comic was a 1969 edition of Detectives Incorporated.
with Alex.
First time I ever met Marshall Rogers when I was working on staff at Marvel, they didn't give him work. But I said to Marshall, I got this series of mine to do of my own, and years later, of course, Marshall ended up drawing.
Yeah,
Detectives
absolutely.
But I said, even the Private Eye thing, it's got to be a costumed hero. But I said to Dean, if I'm not going to break every rule in the book, and then Saber breaks every rule that you could do, you could never do Saber at DC or Marvel. They couldn't handle that material.
Now, was Dean the publisher of Eclipse who
Dean
partnered with you here?
I met Dean through the letters pages of the Black Panther Kill Everything. He was a big fan of the books, and then we got to be friends.
Yeah.
I met him at a convention, and at those days I was collecting 60mm films, and so he was probably over watching an old I Spy or something like that.
Yeah, I Spy was your
we were going out to
favorite.
dinner together, and I don't know, and I had shown him a drawing for Saber, and then Dean calls me like 2 nights later. I said, Don, I want to do Saber. So what do you mean you want to do Saber? I want to publish Saber. So you don't publish comics. He said, yeah, but I want to start my own company. I said, well, I want all my rights. You got it, Don. And I want files. Nobody can change my copy but me.
Right.
Okay. I think I had a half dozen things I said to him, and then Dean he kept saying, yeah. I said, you better come on over. We better talk. It's 40 years later, more than 40. We're still best buddies. This is a business that can break people apart, just like snapping somebody's spine. And we're still, I just got a phone call from Italy at my hotel yesterday.
Yes.
And that's, I just wrote a piece on him because I don't think people appreciate that Dean opened up this medium to do stories. I could never have done gay. I had gay characters planned for the Black Panther, but I could never have gotten them through. Getting the interracial kiss through at Marvel was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. And,
I think there's a story how you engineered that's been floating around a few years. Didn't you kind of, you knew the way Stan operated and somehow you pushed that interracial kiss through?
Well, see, again, pop culture was in a much different place.
Yes.
Now, at least publicly, would want to appear that they're accepting of people of different persuasions, but in those days, not so much.
Yes.
If there was a problem with an all-black cast of characters in the Black Panther, I had in mind that I was going to take Camilla Frost and Mashula, and I was going to get them together as characters.
Yeah.
And every issue, there was a scene with them talking.
Yes.
And an artist threatened to quit the book. I get called to I was called in almost every book. Don, come into the office, and if they shut the door, oh, it's trouble. Yeah, it's trouble. Well, I don't know what it is. What is it this time?
Yeah.
And I'm told the artist is going to quit the book, and what's if I'm doing the salt and pepper. That's their
The euphemism for
a relationship, and I know it's too early. That if I tell them I am doing it, they're going to tell me no. And the problem is if they tell you no and you try to do it anyhow, you'll never get it into print.
Yeah.
And it's an open act of defiance.
Yes.
So then, if I'm already on, if I'm already on their questionable list, I'm not going to get it through. You got to find, it's not enough to want to do it. How do I get it out so that you folks can see it? Mm-hmm. And it gets to be a reality in comics. So I kept baiting the readers so that the readers would start bugging me for, when are you going to let these two get together?
Oh, yeah.
But when I got asked by the editor if I was doing it, I didn't lie. I just said, well, and you have to put it in terms that you know they can understand. And at the time, Modesty Blaze was a very big comic strip.
Yes.
Produced in England with a female lead, and Willie Garvin is the guy who's like her sidekick.
Right.
And follows her around.
She's like a super spy.
Right. And it's a good series. It's great.
Yeah.
I met Peter O'Donnell, and I like the series a lot. So I said, well, it's just Modesty Blaze. It's just they're like fighting companions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't deny I was going to take it there, and I just kept baiting it every issue.
Oh my God!
Because they weren't reading. They didn't have time to read those books. Those books weren't important.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Thor. Those books were important.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this is the only reason I was able to get to that point. And the readers would start saying, geez, Don, what are you doing? What's your problem? And so then but see, then you have to follow protocol. Could I have just gone to Stan? Yes, I could have. But if I skip editorial just to go to Stan,
it's not going to be good.
That's the end of any kind of civility between people at all.
Yeah.
So I know I need to go through them. So then I have to go through editorial, saying I want a meeting with Stan. I want to talk about doing an interracial
kiss
in Killraker.
Yeah.
And so they set it up, and there's a meeting. There always has to be a meeting on these kind of things. And so I know Stan is concerned. Oh well, I don't want the PTA in the South somewhere to see it. It could be a problem. People wouldn't want, and can't she be green, Don? She's white. What can I tell you, Stan? It is. And so there's there's this hesitation being expressed. But I knew that Stan really did want Marvel to be first. He really, honestly and sincerely, he liked them to do stuff before DC would.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Marvel would normally do things. DC would follow later on.
Right.
So I said to Stan, well, Stan, I know you always wanted Marvel to be first doing these things, and I'll be honest with you, I'm hearing rumors that DC is going to do a romance comic, and they're going to have an interracial kiss in one of their romance comics. And I really hate to see DC do that. Oh no, I don't want that, Don. I don't want that. So then, they said, okay, you can do it. But the panel where they kiss has to be in knockout colors.
What's knockout colors mean?
In comics, that means like everybody would be in shades of blue.
Yeah.
So that nobody could take that page out of that panel and point at it and say, I guess that was the reasoning.
You mean like a newscaster in the South or something couldn't
it's going to be
take
in
that?
knockout colors. Now, I don't know what happened. I'm just a writer.
Yes.
What do I know? So I write the issue, and Greg Russell's drawing it, and I get called in the editor's office again, and the door shuts. And then they open up the book and they go, Don, look at this thing here. This panel, you get the kiss, and it's in full color. How did, it is? Seriously? Yeah, look at it, it's right here. Well, damn, how'd that happen? Wow. Well, it doesn't look that bad. It looks pretty good to me. Now, the bottom line to all of that story is, the sky did not fall in on their heads. The world did not end, and comics opened up so that it was going to be less of a struggle. If you wanted to do something more, you could start to deal with it. It was going to be easier for the next people that wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's always been.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now it seems like, and this is from speaking with you just the other day too, that a lot of your tolerance and comfortableness with black folks and white folks doing things together, either a relationship or friendships, came from the I Spy, which you hold in high regard. And that was
you can find it on my website. I know there's a piece. There's like 5 pieces on I Spy. One's called "Love at First Sight."
Yes.
I think the first time I saw Culp and Cosby together, it didn't really have to do with the fact that Robert Culp was white and Bill Cosby was black. I mean, that obviously was history making.
Yes.
It was the relationship between these two guys, and the easy chemistry between them. I like Robert Redford and I like Paul Newman, but if you talk about them with the screen chemistry between those, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But they're no Culp and Cosby.
Right.
These guys are and they were breaking history. I mean, it was just that this show got on the air at all at that time because it had never. There had been no black heroes.
Yeah.
And it was like, and Bob Culp fought all the time to keep Bill an equal on the show. Not as if you ever see the original pilot to I Spy, it's not Shuttle as I Spy.
Yeah.
Bill is definitely a second. He's a secondary character to Kelly Robinson.
Yeah.
Bob Culp goes out and writes one to make sure that they're together. The two of them are equal.
Even. Yeah.
And they were going to let love interest be for Alexander Scott. Well, then Bob wrote one with Eartha Kitt so that they could do a love. Because once you break those barriers down, it gets easier to do it the next time around.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a constant fight about, doing gay characters. And we were talking about Saber earlier because I knew I was going to be putting gay characters in there. And I think I might have told you the story the other day.
Yeah.
Like by the time issue 7 came out of Saber, and for me, that's when the series really starts.
Yeah.
Saber was getting back just in time for the babies being born.
Yes.
And Dean Mulaney's brother Jan, he was the one who would pick up the artwork for Billy Graham. Billy was drawing it. Yeah. And I had chosen Billy because I knew, unlike the artist that had drawn Saber earlier, I knew I was going to have transsexuals in there. We're talking 1981 to 83. Again, it's a different time period, and nothing in comics is even coming close to handling anything like that.
No.
But I said to Dean, like, if I'm going to do a costume hero, because we went through, I was shelving Ragamuffins, I was shelving Detectives Incorporated. Coming back to Saber, that's how Saber really begins. I knew I had to do a costume character. That's what people wanted to see from me. And the big difference was it wasn't going to be a regular series. It was 38 pages. In that 38 pages, I could do anything I wanted.
Yeah.
But it's 38 pages.
Right.
So I really, and you better have something to deliver. We were asking $6 for a comic book in 1978.
Sure. And so this is at the very cusp of the independent market selling
actually,
to
the real beginning of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we sold out. I think we had a second edition out within 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
Because nobody knew if the book was going to go.
Yeah, yeah. You really launched Eclipse with that, and then others would follow.
Financed Steve Gerber. I could finance Stuart Durrett, Steve Gerber.
Right.
Keith Colin did, and Craig Russell did Night Music.
Yep.
And I can't remember all of them. Then finally, I think the fourth one was. And then I could do Detectives.
Right. Yeah. So there was a point where you were doing Saber and
then
Detective.
I could do gay characters in Detectives Incorporated. I could do gay characters.
Yes.
And that was the first time it had ever been done. Again, it was like I only had 46 pages, and one of my favorite reviews I've ever gotten is from a gay critic who understood that I only had 46 pages. Most people reviewing comics don't really understand you've got to contend with the format you're given.
Yeah.
For instance, if I'm doing the Black Panther, and this is a bi-monthly book, if I read a character out for one issue, and if I write Wakabi out for one issue, and if I write Taco out for one issue, that's 4 months between times where people see that character.
Right.
2 books is half a year. That's a long time to ask people to care about those characters.
Sure.
And if there's the only thing that I know that really draws people back into a book is if they care about those people. They want to see what happens to those characters next.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a single book that's only got 38 pages, it's going to try to have the weight of a Panther's Rage, which is 200 and some pages,
sure,
or a Killraven that lasted for 3 years. And in 38 pages, you better give the audience something, because they're looking to see What is Don going to rest on his laurels? What is he going to do? Is he just going to do the same old thing he was doing before? It better have something. That's the as far as I'm saying, Saber has to break every rule that's in Costume Hero Comics.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the fact was, it wasn't going to be a hero. It was like love him and leave him.
Yeah.
As other people wanted. That's not my character, and it's not what I'm interested in writing. Mm-hmm. And so Saber reflected the things I really wanted to write about and what I saw going on in society. When you talk about the separate names, and it became a pain in the ass. It was like, because everybody had to have a name that was kind of reflective of their personalities or how they saw themselves. That gave you distinctive names for the covers for doing a costume hero kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let me just pause. In that mythology, there was a point in the future where people decided that they would rename themselves. So you'd get names yes,
Crimson Dawn or
Crimson Dawn,
Black Star Blood or Midnight Storm. Or, and the names are always, some are Ice, Deuces Wild, and the names are always a little bit. If it was like Joyful Slaughter, because Joyful really liked killing people.
Yes.
He had no problem with that.
Yeah,
you know? So I still get a kick out of Joyful.
Oh yeah,
I love the conversations between him and him and Saber, because there's just, it's so wild and crazy, and yet it can't compete with the real world.
Oh yeah,
it's getting crazier all the time.
I always pictured he pronounced Saber's name strange, like Sabry or
Sabry.
Sabry, yes, yeah.
Always call him Sabry.
Yeah.
But I think in that book, then I could do gay characters.
Yeah.
And then I started to tell the story about Jan getting the artwork on the issue where the babies are born.
Yeah.
And Jan picks the artwork up, and when he comes out to me, he goes, Don, you have the babies being born on panel. You can see the babies coming out. And I said, well, Jan, a lot of what this book is about is that society's values are all askew. You have a problem with babies being born. But there's a war going on around this thing. Arms are being blown off. People are being mutilated. People are being, murdered. Ask me to take one act of violence out of this book. I'll take any act of violence out you want. Because that's what this book is about. And the next batch of pages that Jan has to pick, and Jan said, Don, it's your book. You're going to hit it by sales, 10,000 copies. It's always 10,000 copies. Whether it's big companies, small companies, it's 10,000. I don't know how they're going to scale somewhere. There's 10,000 copies if you do this. That's it. You're going to kill our book. You're going to kill your book. It doesn't. So the next batch of pages that Jan picks up from Billy Graham is two men kissing. This has not been done in American comics before. So Billy calls it up to tell me, Don, Jan picked up the artwork. He's on his way out to you in Brooklyn. I said, yeah.
This seems like a variation of being pulled into the office with the door shutting.
Well, no, because now it's my book.
Yeah.
No matter what, it doesn't matter what anybody says.
Good for you.
It's my book.
Yeah.
So Billy goes, I said, yeah. And so Billy goes, well, he saw the two guys kissing, Don. I said, yeah. And what'd he say? I said, well, yeah. He looked down at the artwork, and then he looked up at me, and then he looked back at the artwork again, and then he looked up at me, and then he looked down at the artwork for a long time, and then finally he said, I guess there's no sense in talking to Don about that.
I knew you well. He knew you well. And then very quickly after that, I think there was a sequence with a woman with bare breasts, but it wasn't sexualized. She was breastfeeding, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, again, it's a natural thing. And in fact, I know I have some where Melissa squirts breast milk into Saber's eye.
Yes. Right, yeah.
But what I really get is that, especially women very often much more playful about sex than men are. Mm-hmm. And that these people could be together and be a mother and father, but still be playful and still be loving with each other.
Yeah.
And still be sexually attracted to each other. And this had not been done. It certainly wasn't commonplace in comics. If it had been done in other places, I don't know where it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in Prince Valiant, you would have, because a lot, another aspect of Saber is Prince Valley.
Yeah, yeah. You talked a little bit
It's basically a
about.
love story about a man and woman trying to raise a family in a world where everything else is the events of the world around us are always going crazy.
Yeah, right.
Maybe crazier now, or maybe we just see more of it because we got so much, so many, TVs and the internet and cell phones, and it's bombarding us with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But by the way, that was part of the one of the part, like doing the names of Saber. It was a pain in the neck because anybody that walked on, you couldn't name one somebody just Sam.
Right. they'd stand out.
Everybody's like, well, what's this? Deary, so this person character is Deary Decadence. This is Wiener Neverhard. This is,
Yeah. Right.
well, what's this person's name? Well, so it really
You kind of
became
raised
a
the bar
challenge.
yourself. Yeah.
It really became a
Yeah.
challenge.
But you only have yourself to blame
But-
for that.
It's like really reflective of like at the internet now when you see people have all these names they give themselves.
Sure.
If you think about it, what have they done? Exactly what people are doing in Saber. They're just not doing it through the internet.
Yeah. That's a great. I never thought of that. That's a great
But
point.
I realized that at some point, oh, look at this. This person's called because they want to be that, or they want to project themselves
Yeah.
as being that. And so I always found that kind of
Yeah. Oh,
interesting.
that's great. Don, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this book, Dragon Flame, which was kind of a breakthrough book at that time, published not by a big publishing firm, but some very personal stories, some very adventurous stories.
The ad for this story was, buy this book, or the comics industry will shoot this author.
Yes.
With a 357 Magnum pointed to my head. And
You
Roy
were-
Thomas, no matter what he says these days, and he's in print saying, so I'm safe to say this, Roy said, if I see that photograph one more time, I'll pull the trigger myself.
You marketed it hard. You got him. This was a good project for you? You liked it?
Absolutely, it was a breakthrough project for me in a lot of ways. One, Dave Kraft got me to, he wanted me to write an introduction for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to write an introduction. I was reluctant at first. While I did all my own letters pages, there was always like an editorial we. So even though I was answering the letters to the Black Panther or to Killraven, and you were getting my personal views on it, it still was that editorial we. Mm-hmm. And there was always like a barrier between me. I wasn't used to saying I feel this, I think this, I want this, whatever it is. And so I wasn't used to doing it. And I thought, I don't feel that the stories need to be explained. Mm-hmm. However, because the stories are written at different points in my life, once Dave convinced me to do the introduction, and Dave probably then thought, oh, I created a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah.
I said, okay, Dave, I'll write the introduction for every one of the stories.
Yeah.
Because they were from different time periods in my life. So it gave you background, not to what the stories meant or what you should think about them, but where I was at the time that I wrote them.
Yeah, I think maybe when you mentioned before about how your fans feel very close and reveal things about themselves, I wonder if things like this really help facilitate that, because you're so giving.
This is one of the, this is what things that you learn as you're doing this, and they're not things you would ever think about before. But when I wrote this book, I was in the midst of going through the divorce, stuff happening with my daughter. So there's stories about not being able to afford. Well, actually, I think that's at the very syndrome. The second book I did.
Yeah.
Not being able to afford to buy her a Christmas tree.
Yes.
And thinking, I'll give Marvel anything they want. Tell me, guys, what is it you want me to do? I'll do it. Because I want to buy this little girl.
Yeah.
She's 5, 6 years old at the time. And some people say, boy, Don, if every story you wrote, like Lord and the Christmas trees, was as good as that, you'd be a pretty good writer.
No, there are.
But the thing about this book was, it's so personal, especially in the introductions.
Yeah.
But it's where I was at the time I was writing it.
Yeah.
By the time the book came out, I don't know how much time had passed. So by the time I was meeting people, and people had a chance to read the book, they're still seeing the Don McGregor that's in the midst of going through a divorce and going through child custody courts. And,
Yeah.
So it's a very traumatic, emotional time for me. By that time, I'm like with Marsha. I'm having sex every day, and I'm going through Manhattan. It takes us 15 minutes to walk a block, and I'm having a great
You're in a
time.
much better part.
So it's really strange because then this is where I am right now. But no, actually, I'm over here now.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was very, that wow, that time lapse kind of thing is just, that was something unique to get adjusted to.
Yeah, I remember there's another line where you talk about with your daughter, and you talk about the impending deadline as the weekend for visitation ends. And as a divorced dad, I remember connecting with that, years and years, just resonates on such a personal level.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lorna and I are still close.
Yeah.
I can't say how old she is these days because she'd kill me. But Lauren would, for a while, she dressed as Lady Rawhide. She would come to conventions with me, and that it was not my idea that for Lauren to. She and Marsha came up with that, not me.
Yeah.
I was just glad that my daughter liked to be with me and still wanted to do things with me. I'm still close with my son, with my daughter, and I can't imagine my life without Lauren in it.
Oh, that's very
The first
sweet.
Saber is dedicated to her.
Yes.
It's the second one's dedicated to my son, and the third one's dedicated to my wife.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
So it covers all three of them.
You've got a lot of deep passions. I did want to touch on Zorro and Lady Rawhide and some of that, and also I understand you're a big Western fan. Was that a part of why you love Zorro so much? And if you can tell me a little bit about that particular.
Well, I know they're always saying they have to reinvent the Western.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at the Western's like any other genre. There's stuff that's really good and there's stuff that's okay, and it depends on what it appeals to you.
Sure.
I'm not saying that I always can live up to all these ideas, but like Hopalong Cassidy was like a second father to me.
Yeah.
Then I got to meet his wife and his widow and get to be friends with Grace in later years is like one of the treasures of my life.
Yeah.
She's everything Mrs. Hopalong Cassidy you could possibly want. She was just great.
Yeah. And Hopalong and
the
it's
other thing, like basically, if you gave your word, you kept it. You didn't need to sign a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You said you're going to do it, you do it. If a friend is in trouble and you can help out, and there's a way for you to help out, then you try to do it. If something bad really is happening, you don't turn your head and look the other way and pretend you didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you don't betray people that you love. I mean, so those things always, they're a part of me. I'm not saying I always live up to them. I'm not saying that I'm, but did I love that about the Hopalong Cassidy character and the personality of William Boyd himself? Yes.
Yeah.
Later on, that's one of the things I love about Zorro. What is Zorro? But Zorro sticks up for, he's in an oppressive society. In early Los Angeles, California. And again, the military's in charge. Mm-hmm. They can be as corrupt or as authoritarian as they want and abuse their power.
Yeah.
And Saber, I mean,
sorry.
let's say
some
Saber,
similarities.
Not Saber, but Zorro is like, the guy's going to come in and say, no, I'm not going to let people victimize the Indians or victimize the people who don't have money. So that I think that character resonates all the way through. And the great thing about Zorro is his personality. The one thing when Mike Mayhew first started to draw the Zorro comics, I kept telling him, despite the fact that they keep putting in the movies that the Batman is influenced by Zorro, Zorro is not the Batman. Mm-hmm. This guy has a sense of humor. He has a real zest for life. Yeah. And you need to capture that. Stop with the grim expressions. He's smiling when he's sword fighting.
Sure.
He's and this only displays his opponents even more. So there are a lot of things I love the Disney Zorro, and like one of my requirements was, can I do the Disney Zorro people? And I asked this of John Gertz at Zorro Production. He said, yeah, I have the rights to do everything. Because if I can't do Captain Monasterio, if I can't do Sergeant Garcia, I don't want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I had an okay to do all of that, so I said, well, all right, then let's go and let's do this thing.
But you expanded so much, again, so many great villains and secondary characters in your Zorro series.
Well, one of the things, like, it was certainly the creation of Lady Rawhide.
Yeah.
because it was a monthly book, and I was putting Jim off because.
And that's Jim
if I said
Salicrup?
yes, Jim Salicrup had approached me about doing Zorro, and he knew I loved Zorro,
Yes.
and it would be steady work. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if I said yes to it, it was going to. I knew myself well enough as a writer by then. Zorro would suddenly become a large part of my life.
Yeah.
And did I want to commit that much of my life where every day I'm, 3/4 of what I write or more will be just Zorro.
Yeah.
And it was going to take a lot of research to do it. So, and going through the Zorro stuff, what did I like? What did I? And one of the things was that women either they were duenas and they were in the hacienda, or
Right.
they were barmaids, and I said, no, I can't write a monthly book and not have any women in it. There's got to be some women characters. If there's no women in the book, I can't write it.
Good for you. You figured out a way.
So then I thought, okay, so there's got to be a character in there that can be Zorro's equal.
Yeah.
And that every time she's on the scene, maybe she's going to steal the scene from him.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I worked with Mike a lot on Lady Roy. I had a completely different design for her outfit, and when I saw it, it made more sense. To be honest, it was more realistic. I said, Mike, it's just not sexy enough. It's just not dynamic enough. I really wanted whenever she appears, man, you're where she's there.
Right.
And we could comment upon. And one of the other things I really wanted to get at is that women in comics normally were allowed to look sexy, but they weren't allowed to be sexual. Lady Rawhide is sexual.
Yes.
She has a sexual identity and lusts, and I wanted a character that could express that.
Yeah.
And at the risk that it would cost her, because as a woman in her time frame, even a brother could sent to a convent.
Yeah.
And for years of her life, maybe for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So for her to do what she's doing is, she's risking everything. Don Diego's risking a lot, obviously doing what he's doing. But in a way, it's really, if she ever gets caught, she's done with her family and everything.
Yeah.
It's all done for her.
Yeah.
So, and I was really careful to come up with ways that her hair is the same color as she is when she's in her civilian identity.
Yeah.
As Anita Santiago. And when they did the Queen of Swords, Zoll Productions was going to sue over that show. But if you ever watch that show, here's this beautiful woman, and she puts on a mask, and she's like the best looking woman in Los Angeles, and she rises, and nobody knows that this is her. Well, I think it's going to be pretty easy to figure out. She's the woman of swords.
Yeah, right.
So, Lady Roy finds a way to dye her hair.
Yeah.
And to make sure that everything is different, so that she, and she's always disguising her voice, so her voice won't be the same. And so a lot of thought went into developing her character.
Yeah.
And it gave a dynamic to it that.
Yeah.
But when I did the newspaper series, I didn't use her.
She wasn't in. No.
And the reason for it was because Lady Rawhide, she was a problematic character because she was sexual. It's always sex. It's not violence that gives it's always sex.
Yeah.
And because she was such a sexual character, I knew that going into the newspaper strip, if I did it, I would have to neuter the character so much.
Yeah.
That there'd be just no sense of doing it. Plus which, since we were in the midst of doing the comic books, I thought these stories will then be set before any of that happens.
Right.
And so that way, it doesn't destroy the continuity between what's going on in the books and what was going on in the strips.
Right.
But then when I did Eulalia Bandini, she was a barmaid, Tom Yates and Todd Smith did a fantastic job with her. That I brought her back in to do a thing with the priest.
Yes.
And I only was going to do the scene with the priest, and and she added something to that scene. And when the big stagecoach chase that lasted for 3 or 4 months, she originally wasn't on stage. Literally the day about that I'm going to start the chase, as though it's going to steal monasteries, chasing with the corpse
Yeah.
and everything. So I'm going to have you guys going to jump on board. And Tom Yates called me and said, "Are you sure you want to do this, Don?"
Oh, really?
I said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm going to do it." And she added so much to the scene
Yeah.
because she could be the audience because she could react to all the wild craziness that's going on around her, and she could bounce dialogue off of Zoe. He had somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And she really added so much to that scene.
Yeah, that was a memorable scene.
And then I really came to love her. So
Yeah.
then the entire second year is around Eulalia.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. It's very clear you love women and you love your characters. Don, I have about 5 or 6 more things that we got to talk about, but I think it's going to have to be part 2. We're coming to the end of our time. Thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to following your adventures in the future, the things you're doing, the reminiscences you have, of course, the viewpoints and the thoughtful thinking that you give everything you touch on, and we're grateful for this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Thank you, Don. That's great.
Hey, guys. Thank you. Well, we didn't take any questions from the audience.
Yeah, we can throw some questions out. I think our next one is a little late. Does anyone have a question from the audience? Yeah? Good? Okay. Yeah, Peter?
You said you were having sex every day. I think that's great. That was with your wife, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that was his new wife. Absolutely. You know, there is one story that might be good to get on. You had revealed to me that there was a story about Batman that you had plotted that never really came to pass. Do you have 5 minutes? You can just talk to us about that.
Okay, at the time I was doing Nathaniel Dusk for DC.
Yeah, and that was a Private Eye.
And Dick Giordano asked me, is there any character at DC that you really want to do?
Yeah.
And I guess there's no character that I like more at DC than the Batman.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly fond of the Batman they do these days, but I don't know about I haven't seen that, but when they were turning you into this kind of hard-bitten character, I don't know that I'm crazy about that. But I said, yeah, I like the Batman. And so Dick said, well, work up a story for the Batman. So in questioning around, like I'm always like working with topics that seem to be important to write about. What can you do?
Yeah.
And there's stuff about, kidnapped kids and pedophiles. And I thought, okay, the opening premise would just be like the Batman saying a 6-year-old has been kidnapped. And there's a sex traffic ring in Gotham City.
Yeah.
And Batman says, maybe I can't stop murderers, maybe I can't stop rapists, maybe I can't stop drug dealers, maybe I can't, but nobody's stealing kids in my city.
Yeah, that's great.
And so then I could explore and I really did a lot of research. I was working with all the scenes, a lot of it is like with the little 6-year-old kid, and it's all through his point of view and subjectively what he thinks as a 6-year-old would. And I had somebody who worked in the sex crimes division in LA that dealt with kids all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I would pass this stuff on. Anything I wrote, I said, how accurate am I? Do I have this right? Am I capturing how this kid would feel, what it would be? And he said, Don, if you could get this book published, we can. And if DC will do an ad for it, we'll do a thing where parents can and people, if they're in this situation. And I think if we help one family with this book. So I worked up, and it was going to deal with going everything from the male prostitutes that hang out at the gaming places and the politicians that take advantage, some of them have predilections that
that's so
this
great.
position, so it was going to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm always looking for safe subjects.
Yeah, right. How safe.
So anyhow, I wrote the story up, and remember, I haven't been paid anything for it. And I guess Dick Giordano passed it on to Julie Swartz.
Oh, yeah.
And I was out, and Julie Swartz calls and gets Marcia on the phone.
Marcia, your wife,
Yeah.
he calls your house.
And he starts yelling at her. We don't do this kind of story. We don't do this kind of stories. This is, it's too sort of. I don't want any thing like that in the Batman. And he's yelling at Marcia.
Huh.
And so when I come home, Marcia tells me that Julius, and I called Julius once and I said, you ever call my wife up again and start yelling at her? I will be down at those offices first thing the next day.
Yeah.
And you will deal with me personally. You got a problem with me, you call me. Well, Don, we don't do this kind of stuff at DC Comics. I said, look. He said, I do gimmick stories. Give me a gimmick. I said, well, I don't do gimmick stories. I haven't been paid a word for the story. You got no right to be mad about anything.
Yeah.
Send the story back. But now, years later, regimes have changed at DC, and Bob Schreck was
Sure.
editing Batman.
Great guy.
And Bob is a great guy. So I'm talking to Bob about this Batman story. Bob says, yeah, let's do it.
Wow.
Send me a proposal on it. So I know how these things work, that especially because of subject matter, they're going to want to know everything that's in there. Because as soon as you send them something, it's going to be, I don't care. They're going to, well, how are you going to handle this? Or how are you going to handle that? So I give them the entire, every scene that's going to be in this book.
No.
One of people picking up young girls in the bus stations. Because this happened to my daughter in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Like at 2 o'clock in the morning, she's heading back to the West Coast.
Jeez.
And a lot of young girls disappear that way.
Yeah.
So I everything was based on stuff I either really knew about, people had gone through. I was with people who dealt with that kind of stuff, and so I did all. So they had it all.
Yeah.
And then Bob says, no, just do a 1 or 2 page thing. I'm not trying to read this. So I said I break down. I do a 1 or 2 page thing, which I'm not. I think it's probably the only time I ever did it.
Right.
And so then Bob writes me back. He goes, well, Don, I can't see the faces of these people. They're like wearing kabuki masks. So I write back to Bob and said, well, obviously you're more intelligent than the average comic book editor. The kabuki mask is a nice reference. But you asked for 1 page. What do you think you're going to see underneath the mask in 1 page?
Oh, yeah.
You got the entire script there. So Bob gives me a call and said, Don, let's go out to lunch. And when we went out to lunch together, Bob saying, to be honest with you, Don, when we started talking about this, I thought I was going to have what I said was the bottom line for what I was going to do in my books. He said, and they're making me rewrite Frank Miller.
Oh.
If they're making me rewrite Frank Miller, what do you think they'll make me do to Don McGregor?
Oh, yeah.
See, you don't have to say anything more, Bob. I got it. I understand. You're absolutely right. And that's the reason the story didn't get done.
Oh, wow.
But the story still exists, and it could be done.
Maybe someone's listening to this and will
never
give you
know.
a call. You never
never
know.
know.
Good.
And I'll just say, that Don is still such a pain in the ass. Will the guy never change?
I hope he never does. Well, Don McGregor, thank you so very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Good. That was great, Don. Thank you.